This episode of Beer and Bullshit is brought to you by Woodhouse Brewing. Woodhouse's lineup of beers is brewed to perfection and best enjoyed in the company of close friends and family. Check them out today at the LCBO or visit them at the Toronto Brew Pub with a newly opened patio. Yes, hello, welcome to episode 2 of the Beer and Bot... Oh, I fucked up already. Take it from the top. Yes, hello. Welcome to episode 2 of the Beer and Bullshit podcast. I'm your host, Ben Johnson. With me for episode 2 is my co-host, Chris Pellerin.
Hey, Ben. Pleased to be here.
I didn't say you could talk yet. I'm just kidding. Hi, Chris.
Okay, I'm here for the bullshit and the beer.
So Chris is not really a beer guy in the sense that he's not related to the beer industry. Instead, he is... my friend I've known for 32 years, longer?
I think maybe a little bit longer. There's some thought that I might actually be your father.
The math on that doesn't check out. We're like 17 days apart, but okay.
But yes, not in the beer industry, but a consumer of beer and a lover of all things beer.
Okay. Good. Thanks, Chris. This is going to work really well, I can tell. So Chris and I we've gone to school together since kindergarten. Went to high school together. Then Chris went to Guelph and I went to Western. And now, after roughly 10-ish years, not living in London, Ontario, we're both back, living roughly 3 blocks apart, and yet still doing this remotely from Chris's basement and my office. That's our whole relationship summed up right there.
That's right. I try not to get too close. You try not to get too close. You pursue, I withdraw.
It's like a Sam and Diane situation, really. I was thinking about this the other day. You have probably become a more adventurous beer drinker than I am. I've become a bit of a crusty old man when it comes to the beer I drink in terms of my cheapness and my, I guess I've gone back to sort of lagers and Kolsch's and sort of like basic balanced styles where you're still a little more adventurous.
I'm still in my IPA phase, if you want to call it that, if a phase can last a decade. I mix it up. I try just about anything that you will give me for free. And
Speaking of which, I think we're contractually obligated to mention we are drinking a Miami Vice from Great Lakes Brewery that was provided to us to drink on the show. I don't think we're obligated to say nice things about it, just that we are drinking it. However, I do enjoy this beer quite a bit. How are you enjoying yours?
That's fantastic. Under no obligation to say so, but Great Lakes Brewery clearly took their talents to Miami.
Okay, that doesn't make any sense, but I love it.
That was a sports reference, Ben.
Oh, okay, that's why you're here. You're going to add some depth to our sports the sports content on this podcast. Do you want to introduce the listeners to you at all? What do they need to know about Chris Pellerin?
Hard to see on the podcast, but I'm a handsome man. I have a wife and 3 children. I am a banker, and there are other boring aspects of my life as well.
Okay, that's it. We got you covered. Do you want to do the news? This is where we're going to read headlines. So I think that's going to be your gig.
Okay. First bit of news is regarding Moen Canadian. They are on a mission to spotlight Canadian-founded beer brands and want Canadians to make it Canadian. That is the slogan they are going with.
Are you aware of this campaign at all?
No. You know what? Until you had brought it up to me, I can't say that I had read about it or heard about it much.
It is a gong show, in short. So the idea was that they basically reached out on Twitter to start asking if Canadian breweries wanted to be in a case of Molson Canadian for Canada Day, which seems insane because, large breweries are antithetical to supporting small independent breweries normally. And also the obvious point that many took a lot of pleasure in pointing out that Molson Canadian is half owned by Coors. So it's Molson Coors. So when they're trying to make it Canadian, a lot of people pointed out that, hey, you're not even 100% Canadian anymore. So that was pretty fun to pile on. I definitely took part. I was enjoying it. But it seems to have gotten worse. to the point where the person who designed the campaign for Molson Canadian was defending the campaign on Twitter, which is never a good look. But when the campaign actually launched, it turns out that you order a case of Canadian, someone like an e-commerce contractor will go to the LCBO or the beer store and try to buy the beers that are participating. But if they can't find those beers, it turns out they're just putting other beers in the case. So lots of people were photographing the cases that arrived at their house with breweries that hadn't agreed to participate. So a lot of people were really pissed off. So if you can imagine that, like, if you're a small brewer and someone bought a case of Molson Canadian and it has your beer in it, and someone's tweeting, "Oh wow, pretty interested to see this small brewery in the case." We never actually agreed to do it. I don't know if anyone's going to sue them. I don't know if they're breaking any laws, but it is just an absolute shit show of a campaign. The idea was, I don't know, to spotlight and celebrate Canadian founded beer brands. They obviously add the founded as a disclaimer because they're not fully Canadian anymore. They're Canadian founded. And they filled the case with a lot of Molson owned brands, like Rickards was in there, Creemore was in there. So it wasn't really like small breweries taking part. And it's been a lot of fun to watch a bit of a meltdown happen on social media.
Well, I can't even believe how many things that they have screwed up in the launch of this campaign. Not being fully Canadian owned, not getting fresh beer directly from breweries. What
Yeah.
what's the goal of this? And is it going to continue, do you think, much beyond? I mean, the obvious goal of it would have been to sell lots of Canadian beer on Canada Day weekend, which came on a Wednesday this year, which is great. But are they continuing this campaign? Is it something they're planning to
All
roll out?
It's supposed to be happening all through July, so presumably this is happening right now. You can go order a Make It Canadian case of Molson Canadian right now. The hashtag Make It Canadian has been largely taken over by beer nerds, myself included, because it's been so much fun. But it seems like one of those ideas that was maybe dreamed up by a marketing person or dreamed up by an agency without really fully understanding the landscape. But somebody commented like this must be an intern's bad idea. But if you look into the campaign, there are like five different agencies that were involved. So like the level of fuckery is unparalleled. It's just great. Like I love when Big Beer tries to like dip its toe into getting like indie cred and people just shit all over them. Rightly so though, right? I mean, you you don't need to do this, so I don't know.
I mean, it feels lose-lose. You have a Molson Canadian that is going to get piled on by everybody on the craft scene. And then you have Molson Canadian drinkers that are probably going to be pissed off because they're missing one of their Molson Canadians.
That's fair. That's fair. Molson Canadian, I will say, is like Chris and I are on the same softball team. We play baseball, well, we used to anyways, every Wednesday. There's no, craft beer where we play baseball in Dorchester. I will drink Bud Light. I will drink Budweiser. I'll drink Miller. I mean, it's baseball, it's hot. I want a cold beer. The hottest day of baseball, if there was only Molson Canadian available, I would drink water. It's one beer that I just, for whatever reason, cannot stand. There's something just disgusting about that beer.
Yeah, I've maybe had six in my life, and they've all been in very desperate situations. Um,
You wouldn't turn down a beer if it was the only beer.
that's fair. But I went to school with a guy that had a blind taste test at a party, and it was Old English 800 or Molson Canadian. And
What a taste test.
well, it was blind taste test to see how many people would know the difference between Molson Canadian and malt liquor, and it was about 50% correct, is what he
Hmm.
told me. So no discernible difference or no discernible taste at in your early 20s with beer.
Hmm.
The next thing we want to chat about is the Black is Beautiful initiative. It's an effort started in the United States in San Antonio, Weathered Souls Brewery, and it's picked up steam across the continent now. There's 25 brewers in Ontario are taking part. Five Paddles, Beyond the Pale, Black Lab, Merritt, Nickelbrook. Those are a few. Storm State here in London,
Yeah.
and the goal is really to look at more inclusivity and address that within the beer community.
Yeah, I think this is a cool idea. I mean, obviously with what's going on in the South, and obviously it's come to Canada with Black Lives Matter. There's been a lot more attention being paid to diversity in the beer industry, which is obviously something that's been Not great for a long time. Still isn't. There's not a lot of people of color working in the beer industry, and there's not a lot being done to be more inclusive. So this initiative is an interesting collaborative effort. The idea is that there's one recipe, so I think all the breweries that are participating use the same recipe that Weathered Souls created, and they are to donate 100% of the beer's proceeds to local foundations that support police brutality reform and legal defenses for those who have been wronged. So it's a 10% ABV stout, and yeah, if you're in London, like we are, you could get it at Stormstade. I have not yet tried it. I just think it's a cool initiative worth mentioning. I don't drink a lot of 10% ABV stout in the middle of the summer, but I will this year.
Yeah, I'm going to knock down a case this weekend probably of that, and if I'm not on the pod next week, it's because I'm dead.
If you drink 24 of these in one weekend, I'll give you $100 cash. I don't even know if
How
I pay
much?
for the beer.
I was going to say, how much is the case?
Yeah, I don't know. If you can do the math and you find it still worth the effort with the, 20 or $30 you maybe have left over.
I mean, it's a
I'm,
little at odds with the healthier lifestyle I'm trying to lead, but I'll do it if there's gonna be a surplus and I can actually pocket
you know
somewhere
what? You
close to
just
eight
said you cared
dollars.
about diversity. Now it's quite clear you don't give a shit at all. If you don't drink a case of this beer this weekend, you're a fraud. And everyone that's listening to this podcast will know.
Anyone who knows me knows I would drink any color beer.
Whoa, whoa, careful.
What? I mean, light lagers,
No, I
the
get it. You're just
stoutiest
getting close to
stout.
saying like all beers matter, and then let's just slowly back away from the
I'm not
road.
saying I don't see the color of the beer, Ben. I
Oh boy.
acknowledge.
Okay, let's go to the next headline.
Next headline
You
is
picked this one.
I did, and this is something that is again probably more impacting our neighbors to the south, but the aluminum shortage that's cropped up over the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
And what's happened is a lot of the macro breweries have needed to pivot away from kegs. Restaurants and bars are not buying beer in the same way they were before. There's a ton of beer that was spoiled that has ruined some inventories. And a lot of the canning happens in Mexico for some of the major brands, Coors Light, Modelo, Corona. These are brands that dominate the U.S. landscape and do well here in Canada as well. And they closed down for 3 months all the breweries in Mexico. So there was a lot of shortages for the long weekend, the July 4th weekend, and I don't
Really?
know.
I didn't actually hear that.
If for some of these major beers, they were not around at all.
Hmm.
And I'm wondering whether this is going to have a positive impact for craft breweries that are already, I would say probably benefiting to some extent from different delivery channels and people seeking to go local through
Yeah,
COVID.
I guess I'd have to understand more about our supply chain for aluminum because it's not just the big guys that are being forced to go into retail. Like there's like have been no licensee sales during COVID. Like you talk to brewers and they are uh, making more beer and selling more beer in some cases than before the pandemic, but none of it goes into kegs right now. It's all in cans and they typically sell it the second it's packaged. So it's probably, I mean, typically these things start in the US and then they also hit us in Canada. So I imagine it could potentially affect the supply of material for cans here too, which is interesting because we pretty much in the last, 5 or 6 years, I would say, moved heavily into cans. The LCBO prefers tall boys. That's like their preferred format. So you see that everywhere in the LCBO, obviously. Um, Mobile canning has become a bigger thing. So lots of brewers are having, short cans as their containers. I don't know. Maybe we'll go back to bottles after this.
Well, there's some thought that might happen.
Folks, you know what I like? Beer. I know, it's shocking. I also like food. And there's nothing I like more than enjoying a beer and some good food that were both prepared under the same roof. That's why when I'm in Toronto, I like to go to the IndieL House. Located in the Junction, the IndieL House offers a beer style for everyone and an excellent menu. I don't live in Toronto anymore, but when I go there now, Indie is actually usually my first stop. First thing I do when I get to Toronto is to go to Indie for a Nashville hot fried chicken sandwich and an Instigator IPA or even a Safe Word Pale Ale. Indie now offers free delivery in the GTA with a $15 flat rate for delivery in Ontario with a minimum purchase of 12 beers. Toronto's IndieL House. You can check them out in the Junction or in their second location inside Italy. Their new patio is opening soon. There's one other news thing. I didn't put it in here, but I just actually saw it today. It's kind of hilarious. It looks like someone has been in Ontario, like a teenager has been taking advantage of having to wear a mask in the LCBO, and she's dressing up like an old lady with a mask on, and she's getting booze in all the LCBOs and posting videos of it on her TikTok. So like she walks out with like a case of twisted tea and then like starts twerking like dressed as an old lady. It's pretty amazing. Like I'm not condoning children drinking, but if I had thought of that when I was a teenager, I certainly would have tried it.
Oh, so is she underage, do you think? And
Oh,
just
for sure. Yeah, no,
oh
she's
wow.
underage. Yeah, no, she goes and dressed like an old lady because she's underage and wearing a mask, and they sell her beer. And she's like, success, and goes to the next store and does it again. I mean,
Clever girl.
kudos to that teen, that underage drinking teen.
That's so much different than just, taking your older brother's driver's license.
Yeah, and then you had a
But
mustache by like grade 11, so we were good.
do you remember our buddy Bobby?
I remember him,
Asked,
yeah, one of our best friends for 30
no, do you
years. I remember
remember
him.
one particular day when we were in high school? He passed as a 13-year-old to get a discount on entry to the Western Fair. And later that same day, passed for 19 and bought beer for all of us. It was pretty
It's
impressive.
amazing. That's the benefit of being a odd-looking Greek man, I guess, or Greek teen, I guess I should say.
Yeah, I mean, I'd suggest the only benefit, but
Wow, we just lost all our Greek listeners.
speaking of Bobby, I was looking at something. Guy from high school, Josh, had posted something on Facebook. A little math puzzle. Said, throw your guesses in here. And I guessed a couple of times. I thought I had it. Eventually, I figured it out last night. But I watched our good friend Bob. It looked like he lobbed about 25 guesses at it. And Josh sent me a DM last night and said, you got it right, but don't post it. This will ruin your fucking life. I'm getting messages at all hours of the night with people with the most ridiculous guesses and comments. Just don't do it.
What is the point of those? I feel like I see those when like older people post like, "Can you spot the difference?" or "What's the answer? Only geniuses guess this." Like I always assume it's some sort of scam. Like if you share it, they're I don't know. It's something to do with the 5G, and I'm gonna.
It's probably the 5G, you're right. But I
I
think
just
it's
throw
mostly,
5G into every conspiracy theory now. It seems to be.
it's just to make old people feel smart. That's all it is.
Is that all it is, or is there something like they're tracking us? Like, oh, we can.
It's probably to identify the suckers online. This
That
person
could
is
be.
perfect for targeted ads because they will click on anything.
That might be it. That might be it. Um, you know what? I actually see that your mom shares a lot of them.
I know it's I've told her not to, but she likes it. She was telling me about the disease from beer cans and asked me to wash my beers before I went to the beach last weekend. I said, "This story is 3 years old, Mom." Like it,
What
and
was the
it was
story? There's a disease on beer cans?
well, it was the reason why Steam Wrestle went with their purity seal. Like
Yeah.
there was two guys got diphtheria from a beer can, and this happened like 2 or 3 years ago. But
That
my mom
really
said,
happened, you think?
"Well, that's what my mom was taken in by on Facebook
Oh, it
from
must
two
be
or
true.
3 years ago." But watch yourself. Watch yourself with those cans. Feel free to wash them before you go to the beach.
I wash cans now or pour it in a glass.
Yeah, I
I don't know.
don't if I'm going to the beach.
What do you mean? What does the beach
Well, I
have to
just
do with
don't.
it?
I take them right from the fridge and I put them in my cooler for the beach. So I don't
Oh,
think to wash them. And then by the time I get to the beach, I just want to drink them.
you're already dead. You're already. By the time this airs, you'll already be dead from diphtheria.
The alcohol cleanses everything. There's a rumor that alcohol cures coronavirus, started by the White House administration.
I've been chasing that theory a while, unofficially. I haven't got it yet, so it must be working. I'm just trying to see how serious diphtheria is and if I should be making jokes about it. Seems okay. There's a vaccine. You'll be fine. Gosnell, another mutual friend of ours, Goose, when he brings bottles of water or some beer to work for his crew, he now puts like a teaspoon of chlorine in the cooler for his guys. He's like, it keeps it clean.
Is he going to explain the science of that on a show with you soon, or what?
I don't know. I feel like that's probably kills whatever's on the can. I'm not sure that there's like COVID living on beer cans until it hits that chlorine or anything, but I feel like most people are now at a germaphobe level that I was at before. Like I'm pretty comfortable with people being insane about cleaning everything. That's great. Let's just be really clean. Why not?
Yeah, and I don't have an objection with personal space. I don't need anyone hugging me or
Oh,
shaking
it's
my
been so
hand for no
great.
reason.
So great not having to hug or shake hands with people. Shaking hands is really weird. It's a holdover from when you would greet another knight, so they say, and check to make sure that knight wasn't hiding a dagger. So now thanks to COVID, I'm walking around with fucking daggers and nobody knows I got daggers under my sleeves.
I mean, now with COVID, it would make probably more sense to shake people by their genitals over the clothing because it would be impossible to pick up any sort of disease from an over the clothing genital grab.
Yeah, no, that's still assault. That's sexual assault. So that's,
Okay.
yeah.
Uh, what factor above your previous germophobia?
Um, I got pretty extreme when I was first home. I have a benefit of having like a ton of hospital grade disinfectant wipes in the house. So I was actually at a point where like nothing got through the door without getting thoroughly disinfected, and then I would wash my hands. I've relaxed that somewhat. But I would say I got pretty Howard Hughes for a while. I mean, why not? Like I have a wife and a 6-year-old, so my wife's immunocompromised. I was on lockdown. Yeah, why not?
Everything about that makes sense except your son's 7.
Oh, he's been 7 for 2 fucking days. Give me a break. Christ,
Well,
what are you, his
you
agent?
know, no, I'm here to fact check as well.
That's good. You're getting your money's worth. Um, yeah, but like a lot, I actually like got to move the needle forward for my laziness in a lot of ways. I've always hated the grocery store like with a passion. I fucking hate going to the grocery store. Like normally you work 5 days a week. The last thing you want to do is when you have 2 days off is spend an hour or two of it in a grocery store. So I finally convinced my wife to do grocery delivery or like click and pick, which I've been pushing hard for forever. So I'm hoping that sticks around post COVID. Ordering your groceries online is fucking great.
What about any problems you've experienced? Like you order milk and you think that seems a little bit light, and then you show up and you got a 100 milliliter
Yeah,
carton of
no,
milk.
that was Kate's argument against it. Like I was like, okay, we'll do click and pick once, let's try it. And we got like a bruised apple. And she's like, see, they pick shit produce. And I was fucked. I could never do it. And now this time it's been pretty good, although I did order like a jar of jalapenos and for some reason got a bag of like 25 fresh jalapenos. Like, so how did you misinterpret that? I don't know. But it was kind of awesome because now I put jalapenos on everything. I just keep reordering the same thing and I get fresh jalapenos. I thin slice them on everything. I put them right on the grill. In a way, COVID's been a miracle.
You know what? It's hard to shit on the grocery pickers there when they've been frontline workers through the entire pandemic.
It's
If they
insane.
blow the odd jalapeno order, then you know
Yeah.
what? I'm gonna cut you some slack.
Oh no, I tore a strip off that motherfucker when he got to my porch the next time. Before we end the show, I'm going to do a segment I hope you and I will regularly do. Given that everyone is at home, I thought we could recommend something to read, something to watch, something to listen to. It's helping us kill the time a little bit. Since it's my idea, I'm going to go first. I think I'm reading it for the first time. I don't know. I was really, really into Hunter S. Thompson for a long time, and I think I missed Hey Rube. So I've picked up Hey Rube, which was the final volume of his collected writing, and it was a time when he had, maybe lost his edge a bit, but he was writing from the sports desk for ESPN.com. So he had a regular online column in early 2000. So it's pretty interesting to read Hunter S. Thompson writing about, early 2000 sports. You're talking about like Dan Marino and the NBA. But then as he was on this assignment, 9/11 happened. So he's mixing in sports with like trying to understand 9/11 in real time. So it's a pretty interesting read. I think one of the sharpest and most interesting political minds of all time, peppering, his take on the Bush doctrine and Bin Laden, as well as like Kobe Bryant. So it's really weird and interesting. There's stuff in here like, will sports survive Bin Laden? Like, it's yeah, it's a good read. If you're a Hunter S. Thompson fan and you haven't read it, I say pick it up. If you've never read Hunter S. Thompson, probably don't start here. But Hey Rube, you can probably get it for like $5 used online or wherever you buy books.
That
You got a
sounds interesting.
recommendation? What do you?
I've spent a lot of this pandemic rereading books that I cherished or reading books with my kids. So a lot of youth fiction.
Yep.
But I've pivoted recently. I just finished reading Neil Gaiman's American Gods, which was a pretty compelling book.
Isn't that an HBO series too?
I think it's Amazon Prime,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and it was interesting. It was really it talks about all the different waves of people coming to America and all of the gods that they brought with them, whether Viking, whether East Indian, whether European. Um, as well as Native Americans and their gods. And these gods are now being pushed out because the people that believe in them are forgetting about them. And they're being replaced by highways, the gods of the internet and network television. It's a fairly compelling read. And I'm interested now to watch the series.
yeah. When was that written?
I don't
Been
know.
around
I
a
think
while because I feel like I've been it's like Ian McShane's in that, right? Yeah.
he is.
Interesting. He's. I mean, I don't think I've seen Ian McShane in anything that wasn't badass. So
What about Hot Rod?
badass. What are you
Yeah, that
talking
was
about?
badass. And he was badass in that somehow as the rough stepdad.
Yeah, yeah. Badass in Deadwood. Badass in John Wick. Okay, American Gods. And Hey Rube. I don't have anything else for people this week, so maybe let's give them some time back and keep it short and sweet. Good first show, Chrissy.
We've been bullshitting for 35 years, so why not do it for other people to listen to?
Yeah, and make some sweet, sweet money with podcast advertising. So lucrative time to get into podcasting. That's it. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Benny. We'll talk to you next week.
Goodbye. Thanks for listening. Be sure and wash your hands.